Hello and welcome to New Junction. You join us today, bright and breezy, I think it's 6 a.m. in the morning, at the Great Central Railway. I'm joined once again by Bob at End Trains. They're going to think we're always here.
Yeah. Feels like it.
It does, it really does. This isn't take 10 at all. We've been invited by the railway very kindly to experience what it's like to fire and then drive one of these beasties behind us. I suppose, and what it takes to run a railway, quite literally. So this could be interesting.
Yes, absolutely.
We've got a day of hopefully quite cinematic filming ahead of us.
Quite manic filming.
Quite manic filming. Well, for you.
For me, yeah.
Yeah. We've got about a bag of 10 GoPros and a couple of drones and things and see what we can do.
We just need 6 cameramen to go with them.
Yes. And of the 2 engines behind us, obviously you've got the 9F and the Standard 5. We are going to be on the Standard 5 today. Which will be fired by my Tony, as you've probably seen on the channel before. And you think all these kettles, and we've not had a cup of coffee yet in the morning.
No, it's not even on steam as well.
Yeah. So hopefully we're about to go and light the boiler. So let's go and have a bit of fun.
Indeed.
Are you ready?
Yes. As ready as I can be at 6 a.m. on a Sunday morning with no coffee.
That's it.
Yeah.
So in the morning, what time did you start?
Booked on at 6 o'clock in the morning, which is pretty standard stuff, to be off shed for 9:15. So, yeah.
And we first found you filling the firebox with coal.
That's right. Yeah. The first job I did was before you guys arrived, which is to get last night's fire out, which on a BR standard is very simple because you just rock the grate and it disappears basically, rather than have to get a lot of rakes out and get rid of it the old-fashioned way. And then once you've got the old fire out, you put a single layer of coal on before adding wood, basically old broken up pallet wood,
yeah.
Onto the fire, which burns very quickly and very quickly. So rather where coal takes quite a while to catch, pallet wood catches pretty, not instantly, but pretty fast. So.
How much coal did you actually have to put in the...
That's a good question. It's just enough to cover the actual grate, so it's hard to tell really. It's one of them things that you get so used to doing it that you don't really know how much you've put in, sort of thing. But it's basically a single layer of, so the whole thing is just covered with pretty much one lump of coal. If you could lay it out one at a time, obviously you can't. So some places you'll have 2 or 3 deep, or a place you'll have 1 deep, and you do tend to leave a little hole right in the middle, so a bit of air can get through from beneath just to help bring it round. But making sure the back and the sides and the front's all covered, because that's where the worst place to have cold air is against the metal. So you want to make sure that's really well covered up. Yeah.
And then when it comes to lighting the boiler,
lighting the fire,
the fire screen.
Yeah, you basically have a bucket of paraffin and a lot of old rags in there, and you let it marinate a bit. A bit of Delia Smith for you.
Bit of Delia Smith.
Delia Smith, yeah. Yeah, so you marinate, soak the rags in paraffin, let them soak for about 10-15 minutes, get it really nice and in there, and wrap a rag round a piece of pallet wood, light it, well away from the bucket. Make sure you light it as near to the fire hole door as possible, really, so it's not exposed. The chances of setting fire to something else are very slim. And then in you go, and then just keep lighting rags off that and throw a few around the box so you get a nice even spread of fire, and just keep feeding it basically with more rags or more timber until it's burning nicely.
How long do you expect the fire to take to build the pressure?
Because it's been out the day before and it's already hot from that, because when we came to it on Sunday morning it had 40 to 50 pounds of pressure on the clock already. So she's very warm in there, which is key. So you're looking at a couple of hours really to start making pressure, and about 3 hours to be up to full pressure, or enough pressure to get off the shed, around the 200 pound mark where we were on, so 40 pound in the morning. And fire tends to spread quite quickly, but you don't want to go forcing the issue. You don't want to heat it up too quickly, because obviously metal expanding quickly is a problem,
And while that is going on, obviously there's lots of other jobs going on in the background.
Yeah.
We saw lots of the guys doing all the background jobs, such as...
Yeah, we had a lot of cleaning going on, which is when there's a lot of cleaners available, like there were on Sunday morning. There was probably about half a dozen lads down doing cleaning work. It makes life very easy because they can go around and clean the engine, clean the cab, clean the boiler, clean the rods, just clean anything that needs cleaning really. Pulling coal forward is quite an important one.
I was surprised to see one of the guys using paraffin. Is it paraffin or kerosene to clean the rods?
Yeah, because the rods are bare metal, you can use a paraffin and oil mix to get the dirt off and the muck off, and then you put a fine layer of oil or Vaseline over to stop them from rusting. Basically, you wouldn't use paraffin on the paintwork for obvious reasons, because it eats the varnish, it attacks the varnish, and makes a bit of it. It looks great when you're cleaning the boiler with paraffin and oil. It looks fantastic, but after a couple of times, you suddenly notice there's a few sort of blemishes starting to appear. And it's very sticky, paraffin and oil. So if you go down the line, any bit of dirt almost gets, rather than getting potentially just blown off and into the distance, it's on it. So, yeah.
Later on, we saw you rocking the ash pan.
Yes, that's
once
right.
again.
Yeah.
Is that to get rid of the morning's fire?
That's the fire we dropped before you arrived, and what was in there from the night before, because the engine didn't come back on shed till about 11 o'clock at night. At 11 o'clock at night, you don't expect the guys to do a full disposal. Just literally, make sure it's full of water and make sure there's no problems with it, and then leave it alone. One of the biggest keys actually is to get it wet. Dry ash, you get very fine dust and it goes into the moving parts and can cause real problems with a locomotive if you let that happen. So young Owen went underneath with a hose pipe and soaked as much of it down as he could. A problem with the rocking grate engines is it's reaching all of the ash, because and I got a hopper ash pan, which means you got to have a bar and drops all the ash out. And the problem there is getting to the ash, whereas with a conventional ash pan, you just open the door and get it all wet, and then you drag it out of the door where you put the hose pipe through, so there's no real risk of getting dry ash. So once we think we've got it wet enough, we crack the ash pan and start to let out the last night's fire, basically, and what was in there this morning and what's collected in there during the evening runs yesterday. And it's just a process of opening it, closing it, and basically shaking it to get as much out as possible. I mean, it's never going to be absolutely spotless like it come out of the factory clean, but every Monday there's a group of guys go in and they do that kind of thing. They get inside and really clean it out and have it spotless for the next weekend's work or midweek work, whatever it's doing.
Can you tell us a bit more about where we're at where we're at currently?
Basically, we've got pressure up. We started off with a light pressure at 6:30 this morning, and now we're up to about 200 pound of pressure. Just tested the injectors are working. We cleaned the ash out the bottom of the engine there. We're just basically ready to go pretty much. Just got to wash up and off we go, sort of thing. This engine that's off shot is coming for coal. We don't need coal. We've got plenty in the tender.
You were shoveling plenty of that this morning.
Yeah, we had a bit of a
I did feel slightly guilty.
Don't. It's what I do it for. That's why I'm this size.
Yeah, that's it. Well, I'm this size. Yeah.
So we're pretty much ready to go. Yeah. So we're going off down the line to do a couple of driver experience runs, which is members of the public have paid a lot of money to drive it up and down, and then we'll come back for you and we'll go off down the line at 1 o'clock on the dining train.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, and so.
Are you able to tell us a bit more about the loco in question?
Yeah, what we've got here is a British Railway Standard 5. It was built at Doncaster Works in 1955 and was allocated brand new to Neasden on the Great Central Railway, where she stayed for many years, and then was transferred around. She served time on the Great Central, so on this very line at Leicester and at Woodford Hulse, which is my home shed kind of thing. And also based at Leamington Spa for a while, which is where I was born, so there's nice connections with this one. Left Barry Scrapyard in 1985, bought by the Bolton Steam Locomotive Group, or that's what they're called now. They were called something else back then. I think North West Locomotive Group, something like that.
Yeah.
Came here in 2001 and was recommissioned in 2017. So there's 5 of these in preservation. and this was the last one to be restored to steam.
So, so relatively newbie.
A very new restoration, this one, and a very good, very tight engine.
Yeah.
It's a real nice machine to work on. Credit to all those who restored her. You know, so yeah, it's a loco that's got a lot of history with this route. So it's nice to be on it. On the line,
ties it all in.
Yeah, it's nice to be on the engine on the line. It worked on in its BR career.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all good. Yeah.
The decision was made to take on more coal.
Yeah.
Even though early did think you probably were on the fence with whether we should or shouldn't.
I had a look and I thought for what we were doing during the day we had enough coal, but the decision was taken to coal up anyway. It's better to be safe than sorry, really. I mean, it's a pretty awful thing to do to run out of coal on the run, or if you come back on shed during the day, it disrupts the flow of work on the shed and things like that. Because you do sometimes see a loco does a couple of trips, then comes back and gets coaled up and then goes back out again, which is absolutely fine. And sometimes it works better because the guys who operate the sort of digger, as it were, aren't available first thing in the morning. So when they're in, you come back and get coal. But no, Martin had a look and he decided we wanted coal. And Tom Ty, who was duty fitter that morning, agreed with him. So we took on more coal. And it's the best thing to do, really. So we drew forward under the bridge and took on a couple of buckets of coal, which is more than enough to do the day's work and probably get another day's work out of it as well.
Take two, take it back.
This is the post.
So then leaving the shed in general, before you hooked up, obviously you stopped at the water tower.
That's right, yeah.
For a refill.
Yeah, I mean, we were pretty full, to be honest, on water, but because of the nature of driver experience work, you just come into the station and go out again, and you don't tend to drop down to where the water column is. So if you can get it as full as possible before the day starts, you don't need to worry too much about putting extra water in, as long as you've got plenty in there. I mean, it holds 4,700 gallons, I think, give or take a few gallons. And we'd used less than 1,000 gallons after the two driver experience runs, so there's still a hell of a lot of water in reserve, But yeah, it's one of them things, you're passing the water tower, so you might as well do it when you're going past, and as you probably see from the footage, we weren't up there for long at all,
hooked up to the train.
Yep.
The weather took a turn at this point.
Yeah, it did go very heavy. In fact, yeah, I coupled it on, and suddenly the heavens opened, didn't they? About sort of 12, wasn't it? That sort of time.
I was slightly worried about all the cameras we'd attached.
I was very worried when it was. I mean, 'cause we attached the cameras when it started to ease off, really, didn't we? But when it was coming down really, really heavy, which it did for about 10 minutes solid, I even shut the windows and stuff because it was that. You know, normally you leave your window open all the time, but I thought, no, that's getting shut. But luckily, it cleared up.
The train I was specifically on, the 1 o'clock dining train,
Yeah.
obviously all the passengers were in good spirits on the platforms and things. I mean, it's quite an experience for those people.
Yeah, the lunchtime dinner train it's quite a prestige working, really, for, you know, in terms of for the general public kind of thing. You're coming along, you're paying however much it is, and you're experiencing a 3-course meal behind a steam train, you know, which is I've done it myself. It's a lovely thing to do, you know. Watch the countryside go by, have your roast beef served to you, while guys like myself and Martin are up the front, you know, doing all the hard work, you know.
We're all ready to go.
Yeah.
The weather has dried up ever so slightly, so
yeah.
the footage should be all right.
Touch wood.
I think the last train to leave Loughborough was slightly late. That kept you behind.
Yeah. The 12:50 left at about 12:55, I think.
Yeah.
We worked it out, and as a result, we left about 3 minutes down,
Yeah.
which meant my boiler pressure was a little too high. I think the safety valve lifted at 1 minute past 1, so it was very much a case of, you know, well, if we'd have left on time, that wouldn't have happened, sort of thing. But, you know, you have to take the rough with the smooth on these things, and really, I probably should have been a bit more acutely aware that the other train had left late, so we were probably going to leave late. But, you know, it's easy to be wise in hindsight. I'd rather have a decent fire there that's going to take us on the journey than have a not so well built up fire and find myself in trouble halfway down the line, kind of.
But then I suppose departure-wise, it was fairly smooth and standard. And
Yeah. Martin, you know, very smooth driver, very experienced driver. Brought the engine, you know, no slipping, nothing like that. You know, which can be difficult on a damp rail. It's not damp is probably the worst because it goes in the damp. It's quite greasy, as you find on the road, kind of thing. A little bit of rain makes it greasy. When it goes torrential rain, it tends to almost you get more grip back again, you know. And so it's a very skilled job to get that much train moving, and could be the dining train even more so. If you don't want to be jerking around on that, if you've got guys trying to serve, you know, drinks and meals and things, you know. Yeah, and we had the drain taps open, as you saw, as we left, coming under the bridge and all that. And that's just to basically clear any water that might be in the cylinders and things. If you have water in there rather than steam, it can quite catastrophic results. So that them taps being open just blasts anything out, and then as soon as you're confident it is clear.
It did make for an impressive exit.
It does make for a very impressive, very artistic look,
Yeah.
doesn't it? Yeah. There's a potential to increase the speed limit on that section in the future, but at the moment it's all very much
Hopes and dreams.
yeah, hopes and dreams rather than a reality. I mean, you know, it's at the end of the day we are a light railway. You know, we are a heritage railway, a private railway, and the speed limit for those is 25. Even though we have 5 miles of fully signalled double track. And in fact, on the stretch between Quorn and Rothley, I think it is, on the way back, we have CWR, which is continuous welded rail, exactly the same as the national network does, and that's where a lot of the high-speed testing takes place. We can run unofficial high-speed testing days. We can run a steam engine up to 60 miles an hour and a diesel up to 75, I think it is. So there is potential for the future there, and it would be nice to double track all the way to Leicester North as well, rather than having that bit of single line at the for the last mile and a half, 2 miles into Leicester. You know, it'd be nice to go all the way through on double track. You know, we talk about the mainline experience. That's what the mainline experience is, in my opinion, is double track. You know, and the fact we passed the class 45 on the between Loughborough and Quorn. You know, where else can you do that on a preserved railway in the world? So the starter signal just beyond the signal box at Quorn was at red, which was because of 47406, which was on the train that left Loughborough late at 12:55, was still in the section between Quorn and Rothley. And when it's a training section, they can't release another section for obvious reasons. Catch it up and bang. So we came to a halt there at the starter signal and waited for a couple of minutes. If we'd have waited too long, Martyn would have had to go down on the telephone and walk to the signal box and spoke to the signalman to make sure we got protection, basically, because if just make sure the signalman knows you're there, even though the train's literally visible from his window. You've still got to make sure he can see you. I mean, there are instances of engines back in the 1910, I think it was, on the Settle Carlisle, the signalman had 2 engines outside his signal box, forgot why they were there, pulled off for an express train. They went off up the line, thinking the signal was for them. The express train caught them up and plowed into the back of them. It was Christmas Eve, towards Junction. So you've got to be, these things happen, and that was a case of, one, the signalman had forgot the engines were there, but the engine driver should have gone to the signal box and said, I'm here, I'm waiting for a signal. And that way the accident would have been avoided. We're on the diner train, we do stop on Swindon Viaduct, Swindon Viaduct for 20 minutes, or give or take a minute or two, while just to give the people doing the serving and things a bit more time to do the job, and to avoid, and also it's easy to serve when the train's standing still, I guess. When I went on it, I can't quite remember when they serve, what they serve, but it's a good chance to serve quite a bit of stuff while the trainers are moving and avoid rocking and rolling, rocking around and things like that. Even though we were running very smoothly, there's still that bit of movement, as you know yourself when you're walking down a train, there's always a bit of movement, whether it's smooth or not.
And it gives us a good chance to put the world to rights.
Yeah, we had a great chat on the viaduct about
everything,
I think. Yeah, I think we touched on most subjects, and I think Mark was on about jazz clubs at one point. What relevance to that to preserve steam is, I'm not quite sure. We were just off the viaduct actually, so you couldn't really see that much from where we were positioned, because obviously you have to position it where they are, not where we are, unfortunately. But I did a murder mystery diner train as a passenger on the GCR, and you still stuck on the viaduct for 20 minutes. This was the 4th of December and it was completely pitch black. So I couldn't quite work out the relevance of that, but it's just, again, it's to give the chance to serve food and the actors chance to act and things, you know.
Right, about 20 minutes here then.
Yep, that's it. Yeah, so we should stay for the next 20 minutes in this glorious
August weather.
August weather. Yeah. Welcome to Michael Parkinson, this time starring Richard Watson of the Junction.
That's it.
Woo! That'll be edited out, that won't matter.
That's what you think.
Who won the 1980 Grand Prix? Louder. Who won the loud?
Now from Pete.
Louder. Who won the?
I'm here all week.
The old one's always the best.
You keep them coming, you'll play on the big YouTube channels someday.
Anybody tuning in's got it. What's this?
What the f*** am I watching? You have to get your bleep machine going for that one. I'm watching
What is this exactly?
two rowing men just talk nonsense at each other for 20 minutes.
We can cut to the front for 20 minutes.
Yeah, just silent
Yeah,
and we're just
yeah,
staring
yeah.
out down
Yeah.
2 wet rails. Oh, this is good, isn't it?
You could have that card, couldn't we, that used to come up?
Oh, it's a test card.
A test
yeah.
card, we have the test card.
What you'll do when you see it
Little
back
girl
on
with chalk.
you,
Yeah, little girl with chalk.
it'll be like this. Just go, oh, we're stopped in the reservoir now. Just start moving again straight away. So yeah, a technical break, you know. No.
And yes.
But this
And now for the hard of hearing, here is some music.
Yeah, for those who can hear rustling. But no, getting to bring this round to a serious level. This is one of the joys of volunteering. Really, is these kind of moments when you can, you know,
Just relax.
you're on top of the job, and you can sit and talk and have a really good conversation with a really good mate. You know, I mean, we're here for fun at the end of the day, aren't we? So, you know, that's what it's all about, really. You know.
How long have you both been volunteering now?
This is my 10th year here, but Martin's going to seriously trump that in a minute.
Yeah, I've done 25 years on this railway, but in January next year I'll have done 50 overall.
Blimey, yeah.
Yeah, in the Heritage Railway movement.
Yeah, volunteering and working.
Yeah.
Which said that.
Yeah, both,
Martin's
yeah.
full-time employed and he's
I
self-employed.
worked here for 5 years.
You worked
Yeah,
Swanage
yeah.
for several years, didn't you?
I
As
did.
a full-time
Yeah.
employee.
Yeah.
And of course, Martin runs his own. You know, like I run my own model shop. Martin runs his own. It's transport supplies and you do training and things
yeah,
like that.
I do
don't you?
training, assessing, safety management systems. Yeah,
It's not been if you
that's the day job.
if Martin hasn't done it in railway preservation, it's not really worth doing, is it?
Yeah, done a lot.
And for you, what is it about that keeps you coming back and
Keeps me
getting up
coming
early
back.
in the morning?
That's a good question, really, isn't it? I mean, it's just I think it's the love of doing something I've always wanted to do. I mean, when I was 5-6 years old, I was wanting to be Michael Schumacher or Gianfranco Zola or whatever, I wanted to be an engine driver or an engine fireman. Really, I'm just as happy on this side of the cab as I am, would be if I was on Martin's side of the cab. And it's, I've met some amazing people doing this job. I've got some wonderful friends out of it and some, really great experiences. I mean, 8 years as a fireman, 10 years volunteering overall, and it's been brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, you do have bad days. Not gonna lie to you on that one. There are days when you just want to get away from it as fast as you can, really.
It's usually down to the weather, isn't it?
It's either the weather or
Yeah.
something happens beyond our control. I think is a
Yeah.
good way of a diplomatic way of saying that. We had a couple of days where we had incidents where things didn't go right because they weren't right on the outside, But generally speaking, we've had
That's
there's
some good days.
some
aren't they?
cracking days. Yeah. I mean, a year ago today was
Yeah,
an amazing day.
Yeah,
We
50th anniversary of the
recreated
end
the
of steam. Yeah.
50th anniversary and this engine double-headed with the 8F, which is on shed that's now out of traffic, 8624, both in disguise as engines from 1968. This one was 73069, and Yeah, it was 48476.
48476.
Which
yeah.
ran on a
Yeah,
enthusiast
last one,
special,
yeah.
together on. That was actually on the 4th of August, but we had them running on one service, and Oliver Cromwell, which is in the shed being restored at the moment, which hauled the last ever train on British Rail. We had it here 50 years to the day, recreating the last ever train, even though it wasn't over this route, because this route had closed by then. Well, effectively closed. There were still DMUs on this bit, weren't there?
Till May 69.
May 69, yeah, but in
69,
September
I think,
66 it closed as a proper through route kind of thing. And the year bit.
I think the other thing is that people say to you, oh, you've got a great hobby, haven't you?
Yeah.
Doing this, but it's way more than just a hobby, isn't it?
It's a way of life, really.
It is. It's exactly that.
Yeah.
It's a way of life. The whole rowingman's way of life. Everything we do, whether you're a signalman, a guard, a plate layer, a footplate, whatever, we are preserving a way of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's something actually. One thing I really can't stand is when people call us lucky. Because you and I have worked bloody hard to do what we do. I mean, and we're not the only ones. I mean, anyone who's trained to be a fireman or an engine driver has gone through a lot of hard work. Yeah. You know, I mean, cleaning engines, getting up at the crack of dawn. Doing basically all the dirty, horrible jobs. You live for moments where you are on the footplate and you're cruising along and you've got plenty of steam and everything's right with it. But when you're getting up out of bed at 4:30 in the morning, or and it's cold, you're tired, it's raining. You really do preserve railway volunteers, not just footplate men, any preserve railway volunteer. I mean, the guys behind the scenes who do all the permanent way and things, come down, read ballast
carriage and wagon,
and and guys, the people who look after the shop and the tea rooms and stuff, they're all hard-working people, and majority of them are giving it up, doing it absolutely
for no pay,
for no pay at all. So we're really not lucky to do this. We're committed, But and it's great, It really is. I wouldn't change it for anything.
No. One of the real strengths of this railway, well, all heritage railways, but this one I think perhaps more so than most, is that we have an ability here to cater for enthusiasts, whether you're diesel enthusiast, diesel galas, steam enthusiast. But then of course there are enthusiasts of different levels, aren't there? Some people are interested, they're not obsessed by it, they've got a general interest in railways. Yeah. You get the family audience, so we cater for a wide, the dining audience, like we've got on the train there today, we've got the diners. They're all very different audiences, and they all enjoy it.
The murder mystery diners, there's another thing altogether. Which is it's a real entertainment industry doing something like that. You've got these guys who come down and act out a murder mystery. I mean, I've been on one. It's good
fun.
It's good fun. Yeah, it's a bit carry-on film the way it goes on. But it was good. Yeah, we all enjoyed it, and the people love it. Yeah, and it's something different rather than just your normal train ride. But
the organiser said to me once, he said there aren't enough Fridays in the year.
Very true.
They could fill every Friday doing that.
When we booked ours, we went to book it back in May for the summer, and we got told the only one that had any availability was the ones at Christmas, which is why we did it as a Christmas meet-up rather than a summer meet-up.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I was absolutely astounded.
Yeah.
But the other good thing about this railway is the age range of the volunteers. I mean, there's a lot of young lads at the Great Central. I mean, you go to some of these places, and it's not their fault, but you're lucky if you see someone under 50. And here you've got a lot of teenagers, a lot of lads in their early 20s, quite a few lads my age, and then moving on into the 40s, 50s
that's a fairly recent thing. I mean, the average age of our footplate staff a few years ago was really quite high, and now that's come way down. With some recent promotions, it's got the average age a long way down, which is a good thing. I support that completely. It was getting to be quite. We were getting to be an ageing group.
We do well for the younger volunteers.
I suppose my question to you both after that was, what do you see as the future of heritage railways?
It's a wide open one, that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, getting back to what I was saying earlier, you're governed by factors outside your control, really. I mean, these aren't young machines. This was built in 1955, and this is a relatively young one. And the cost of looking after them, the cost of maintaining. I mean, there's all this stuff about how domestic coal production being banned and things like that. I mean, the genuine answer I'd give is enjoy it while you've got it, because you never know when it's going to be taken away from you. But I'd like to think we're going to have working steam, past, all my life and beyond. I mean, the sort of the thing you think about is, how old this engine is, and it's it's still working. I mean, you know, not many people born in 1955, they're still working, you know. Actually, what, that'd be 64, 64, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
50.
56.
So you would, but you're planning to retire. This has got 8 years ahead of it, you know. You know, that's a bit of a Freudian slip there, but yeah, you know, it still behaves like it was built, really. It's, you know, it's nice to think that, you know, there would be a new generation of enthusiasts and there would be a new generation of volunteers.
I was going to say, how important are the volunteers to a railway line?
Vital.
Absolutely
vital. I mean,
absolutely vital.
I'd say there's about 6 or 7 preserve lines in the UK could exist on full-time paid staff.
Yeah.
And they're all your tourist attraction ones. You paint and Dartmouth practically do already.
Yeah, Vale of Rydal, Snowden Mountain.
Yeah, I mean, they are full-time staff already, but...
And they all make a profit.
Yeah, I mean,
They're
somewhere
all
like,
profitable railways.
somewhere like Festiniog of Welsh Island could probably run on a profit with paid staff, and possibly somewhere like the North York Moors.
Yeah.
It's got to be tourist areas. It's got to be areas where there's, you know, I mean, around here we're lucky to be in between several cities, but it's not really a holiday area, Leicestershire.
No, we've got on the one side we've got a good catchment.
We have got
4 people.
Coventry, Derby, Leicester, Nottingham, you know.
But as you say,
Yeah.
Charnwood is nice, but it's not exactly a tourist
I
trap.
mean, really, apart from where we're sat now, it's not really
this is the best bit.
a line of views like the Festiniog on Welsh Island or North York Moors are, you know. But I'd like to hope there's going to be enough volunteers in the future to keep preserve steam alive.
Well, I go further than that, I have to say. I sort of take it quite personally in the sense that I feel that my generation have a duty to pass on our skills, the things that we've learned, to the next generation. Partly for altruistic reasons, to keep all this lot still alive, and partly for selfish reasons, because I've worked my butt off for 50 years to preserve all this stuff, and I don't want to see it all lost. So I have got a bit of an agenda on that, and I don't mind saying that. But equally, I'm more than happy, subject quite close to my heart, to pass on all of that to the youngsters and bring them along, encourage them, train them. You see, this day, 11th of August, I was at Kellyfield with my late father, 68, watching the last train go by. But the present generation, they don't know about that. That's like, I might as well be talking about dinosaurs, because it was such a long time ago to them, it doesn't mean anything, whereas it does to my generation.
I think, in a weird way, it's... Swivelen basically is the junction for the Mount Sorrel branch, which is a line that went off up to Mount Sorrel Quarry back in the day, and then has been partly restored up to the main road, the Rothley main road near Mount Sorrel, about a mile of track, which was a community project. And some trains do run up there sometimes. The DMU goes up there, or the Huns at Austerity, or the LMS 3F have gone up there in the past on special days, kind of thing. That's what Swivelen sidings was there for. It was like a sort of transfer sidings for Mount Sorrel traffic and things. That's why you got the lovely passing loops and things, which is kind of track work wise is a very sort of the key feature of the railway. And all the signals at Swivelen are a lower quadrant rather than upper quadrant, which means when they're pulled off to signal a train can pass through when it's green, the arm goes down rather than up. So which is a very Great Western style of things. Yeah, as we came through Swivelen today, on the right was Joe Connell, who's a very good friend and one of the Great Central's official photographers, and he photographed us. And I must admit, I did a bit of showboating, put a bit of extra coal on just to make a bit of smoke for him. Nothing too outrageous, but just a little bit of texture in the exhaust. So yeah, he's a good friend and a very good photographer.
Definitely. I mean, he did send me this photo.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a cracking image of me watching the
View.
road ahead. Some people call it posing, I call it observing. So, yeah, it's great.
Literally around the corner from Swivelen, we're pretty much going straight into Rothley.
We are, yeah.
This is interesting because you have to, although you are passing the station, technically you do have to stop for the staff.
Yeah. I mean, between Swivelen and Rothley, you've got a very, very short section. It's only roughly a train length long. As you pass the section signal at Swivelen, you can see the home signal for Rothley before you actually pass it, which is very unusual. Normally sections are several miles long. This one's less than half a mile. Probably less than a third of a mile, actually. And yeah, as we rolled down into Rothley, we just stopped very briefly in the platform there to get the train staff off. Andrew, who was the station, I presume he was station master that day, I'm not sure, but Andrew Morley was the lad who handed us the staff, who's a very knowledgeable guy on the GCR history and all that, really understands, the history of the railway. And then literally within 60 seconds, I think we were off again. So.
So leaving Rothley, we then go on to single track.
That's right, yeah. The reason we picked up the staff, the station staff, or the single line staff, or the tokens, got many names, at Rothley is because we're going on to a single line section from Rothley to Leicester North, and you need the staff basically to make sure you're the only train in that section, so you don't end up in a collision of any description. And also it's double purpose. The staff acts as a key to unlock the ground frame when we run round at Leicester North. But yeah, leaving Rothley, make sure the crossing's clear, make sure the driver knows you've got the staff on board. It's very important he sees that, and he knows it's the correct one. Which, not so much on the Great Central these days, but on other railways you'd have a staff between each station on single lines, and if you got the wrong one, effectively you're not got permission to be in that section. You're endangering the train, yourself, and the other train potentially you're heading towards. So anyway, we made sure we got that. Crossing was clear, green on the starter, and pulled out. You got a 10 mph slack coming out of Rothley because you're passing the carriage works and sidings and things, and then once you're clear of them you can accelerate back up to the light speed of 25. Yeah, and it's quite a climb actually out of Rothley towards Leicester North, while in comparison to the rest of it. I believe it is slightly steeper than one in 176, even though the gradient profile says it's that. Maybe, you know, as time's gone on, it's slightly changed. You know, with earth movement and stuff.
And of course, on the single track, you've got a public crossing. So
That's
a bit of
right.
excitement.
Yeah, as you come up underneath the dual carriageway, and after you're under that, you hit the top of the line. Actually, hit the summit of the roofs, and you roll down into Leicester North. And you come under a 3-arch bridge, and just beyond that, as you're curving right, there is a public crossing, a foot crossing, which is it's an interesting place sometimes. You know, the local population sometimes don't respect the rules of the railway. You have to keep a real good eye out there for anyone doing anything that's silly that might endanger their lives. You know, I've had an incident there in the past. It wasn't a lot of fun. You know, with people who don't really appreciate just how dangerous it is to be on a railway line, be it a heritage one or a national network, or even a narrow gauge one for that matter. But yeah, so that's interesting. You've got a distance signal there, which is permanently in the on position, but still funny to call it out. Tell Martin there's a yellow on it, and every time you do it, you get a slightly sort of I don't know what the description is. Slightly narky look, possibly. You know, you know, all in good jest, though, of course. And then yeah, it's just a case of rolling down the hill into Leicester North and handing over the single line staff to the guys on the platform there. We'll then pass it to the guard so he can work the ground frames.
And then in Leicester North, although it's the end of the line, as it were, your work continues because you've got to run the train round.
Yeah, if anything, work probably gets a bit more intense at times at Leicester North, especially for the driver, because you have to uncouple the locomotive from the coaches, and that involves quite often having to squeeze the engine up, which is where you put it into back gear and just ever so gently buffer onto the coaches a bit more, just to take the tension off the screw link coupling, because if it's fully tensioned, you never move it. And then you uncouple. When you uncoupling, very important to remove the vacuum bags first, just to protect yourself a bit more, because it's probably the most dangerous job of the day is coupling and uncoupling an engine, because you know you're in between something that can basically crush you or kill you quite easily. So you know you've got to have a real good understanding and a real good trust in your driver to, and make sure it's very clear to him that you're going into that area. Like in the morning when you go underneath the engine to check it or do the ash pan, it's very important. People know you're there. It's very important when you're uncoupling, people know you're in that space. So yeah, so split the bags, loosen off the coupling itself, then remove the coupling. And there's a hanger, a sort of hook bit behind the actual coupling itself, which we hang the actual coupling off. Because if it dangles down and hangs around, it can, you can hit things and potentially, damage the coupling, or even bring you off the rails if you hit something particularly heavy with it. Very unlikely though, but still, it's best to put it into the correct position. Then the vacuum bag goes back onto the train first, and then the engine second, and we put the lamp in position for light engine movement to take it round the train. And then it's a case of back onto the footplate, run down beyond the points. I go down at the south end of Leicester North Station, to change a point at that end while the guard changes the points at the other end. And basically run around the loop. The guard will give Martyn a calling on signal to tell him that it's safe to proceed and to pass the stop board there. Then basically we buffer onto the train, and the whole process is repeated in reverse. So we split the bags again, but this time rather than uncoupling it, we put the coupling back over, tighten the coupling up, connect the two vacuum bags together, and back out after doing a final check to make sure everything's okay. Setting the lamp for passenger train working rather than for light engine working, and basically making sure there's enough fire and water to get us out of Leicester.
I think the station master of the day, informed you that you were maybe a bit late because of the train beforehand.
Oh, the guard, yeah.
So therefore you were not to
That's
stop
right.
on the reservoir on the way back, as would be normally planned.
Yeah, the guard said to us at Leicester North, basically we left 7 minutes late, 7 or 8 minutes late, and of course we were held for a good 2 minutes at the signal at Quorn on the way out, because we were waiting for the LMS 3F to clear section. So it was a case of running back non-stop. So it makes life easier as a fireman actually, because a lot of pressure and energy and steam are used by stopping and starting in particular. So to run back non-stop made life very easy, and we just sort of, once we're out of Rothley, obviously gave the staff back at Rothley, and once we're out of Rothley, just over the climb there, it's pretty much a case of freewheeling all the way back to Loughborough. No need to stop at Quorn, so you just no need to slow down at Quorn either, because it's 25 miles an hour through Quorn platforms on the down side, because there's no crossing or anything there. So yeah, it was a very easy run back into Loughborough.
Where we terminated, and I ended my journey with you.
I ended my journey as well. That was the end of my day. We handed over to Neil and David, and they took the engine on the 3:30 train. When we hand over, it's nice to make sure the guy you're handing over to is happy with the engine, the condition it's in, the level of the fire, the level of the water, the amount of pressure. And David was happy, so it was nice way to end the day.